What's goody? Hey man, so today we are back again with another video, y'all, and here we are talking about my coaches that I have on the hot seat for next season. Now, I want to preface this by saying a coach being on the hot seat doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get fired. It doesn't mean that I'm calling for them to get fired, and it definitely does not mean that I want them to get fired. You'll almost never hear me say that I think a guy should get fired or that I want a guy to get fired because I never want to. I almost never really want to talk about that stuff because getting fired is a big deal, right? Like that's whether or not you can feed your kids, whether or not you know whether you're gonna how you're gonna sleep this month. You know what I mean? Like everybody budgets their month, their year, their week on paycheck. So I don't ever want to call for somebody's job. But just being realistic, I think these are the couple of coaches who, should things not go the way we want them to and the way they want them to next year, I could very well see them unfortunately losing their job. So first, we've got Kenny Atkinson of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I made the script and everything like that before the Peyton Watson trade happened, but obviously I am recording this video after the Peyton Watson trade happened. The first thing that I want to say is I think after the Peyton Watson trade, this got even more true. I think the fact that the Cavs were willing to trade a first-round pick that's unprotected and a real player alongside with that to get Peyton Watson proved to me that this is a team that's really trying to go all in right now. If the James Harden trade didn't prove that to you enough, them going out there and trading what they traded and then signing Peyton Watson for 4 years, $88 million, to me sounds like, yes, immediately we are trying to win right now. Sure, Peyton Watson, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell are all young enough to where if we don't win right now, we at least have a couple of guys for the next couple of years for sure. But I think they saw the Knicks win and they think the East is wide open. I think they saw the Knicks win, they saw the Sixers get better, and they said, okay, there's no way we're going to be able to beat either one of those teams with no perimeter defender, with no real point of attack defender. That's part of the reason why I like getting the Peyton Watson thing. But what I will say, Peyton Watson makes this team better, right? And once your team gets better, once you make a trade that you give up some assets in order to make your team significantly better, the expectations are going to increase alongside with that, right? So we've seen Kenny Atkinson take this team to new heights. They were a 60-win team 2 years ago. I think they had 64 wins, and then last year they made it to the conference finals. But what I will say is, like, those are accomplishments for sure, but when you're a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers and you're really trying to win championships, that's not enough. And I'm not just saying it's not enough because you didn't win, because there can only be one winner. I'm saying it's not enough because of the way you looked en route to those 64 wins and en route to those to that conference finals appearance, right? Because last year, sure, you made the conference finals, but it was a very uninspiring and unimpressive run to get there. I believe they took 2 Game 7s, first versus the Raptors and then versus the Pistons as well, I believe, to get to that conference final series against the Knicks, and then you go there against the Knicks, and I don't believe they won a single game. They got boat raced by the Knicks. So that's not a good look. And then 2 years ago, we looked at you being a 64-win team where we kind of expected you guys to run into the Celtics in the conference finals. And then you got belted that year and didn't even make it to the Celtics. And well, the Celtics didn't make it either. The Pacers did. But didn't even make it to the conference finals, blah, 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 blah. So I absolutely think that if this team with, I don't know, let's just say, here, let's put it to you like this. I don't think Kenny Atkinson is the reason necessarily that those two teams disappointed. I don't. I just don't think the roster and the chemistry and everything like that, I just don't necessarily believe anymore that this team and this core is built to win a championship, to be real with you. After seeing it for so many years, I just kind of think we've seen the ceiling of it, and I think that might have been last year. But they went and got Peyton Watson, right? And now, obviously, you expect for that ceiling to increase. And, well, while Kenny Atkinson might not have been the reason for those losses in the past, if they don't get over the hump, or at least show that they could get over the hump, show some improvement, show some that they're making the right steps by winning a couple games in the conference finals or by even winning the conference finals, I do think Kenny Atkinson will kind of get some crazy looks, right? Because you got Donovan Mitchell, who already got paid. They went all in with the trade for Harden. They went all in with the trade for Peyton Watson. And you already have Evan Mobley, who's a young player who got paid and who you know they're not going to get rid of. So there really aren't any players other than maybe Jarrett Allen, who's really a trade piece on this team, at least in my opinion, out of the starting 5. So you know they're not going to do anything crazy to blow up the team, especially after paying these guys. So if this should be a disappointing season, the only thing that I think would change, or that they would be willing to change that would make any sense, would be the head coach. Again, this is one where I don't necessarily think that would be fair unless the Cleveland Cavaliers were really awful this season or something. But I mean, when you look at what's happened in Cleveland, it's how they've been, right? You had JB Bickerstaff, who had this core and didn't win with it, and even though they were a good team, they wanted a guy that could take them over the hump. Well, now we have Kenny Atkinson, who's a good coach, who has done great things with this team. I think he even won Coach of the Year, maybe, when they won 64 games. But if they can't get over the hump again with the same core, obviously management's going to be like, well, should we fire another coach? When obviously I think the real question should be, maybe the core isn't what should work, but they already went all in on this core. So they're not going to trade that. They're not going to change that. So the reality of the situation is if the core disappoints, the core probably won't be getting punished for it. It'll probably be the coach, and I hate to see that. Anyways, next we have David Adelman, and this one is one that I think, of all the names that I have on this list, I think this one is the most likely to happen. And I have a couple of reasons behind this. No hate to David Adelman personally or anything like that. I don't know the man. I don't know anything about the man. But I just personally did not understand the whole process behind firing Mike Malone 2 years after winning a championship just to promote David Adelman. I understand y'all were worried. I think the whole buzz at the time was like they were worried about him going to get an assistant coaching or a head coaching job somewhere else, and they wanted to keep him in the building. Okay, cool. But, like, you already had a very good championship-winning coach. I just don't get it. It's not like Mike Malone won a championship and then they fell off drastically because of him. And it's like, yeah, go ahead and fire him and promote his second in command. No. That team was still a very good team. He got fired like 3 days before the playoffs even started. And then what did they do? They go out there and sure, they put up a Game 7 against Oklahoma City, but they lose that Game 7. And I mean, if we're talking about a coach that had been coaching them in those moments before and had experience in those moments, maybe the Nuggets win that game. Maybe the Nuggets beat the Thunder, who went on to win that championship. Maybe we're talking about the Nuggets as having 2 rings. Maybe we're talking about the Nuggets, if at least not having 2 rings, we're talking about the Thunder in a whole different way because they would have never won that first championship. Maybe, I'm just saying maybe, if Mike Malone is still there, they can win that one extra game. I'm just saying. And then last year, the Nuggets, they get put down by the Timberwolves in the playoffs, lose in the first round. I think that series went 5 or 6 games, but that was just a terrible series if you remember watching it. The Nuggets really just didn't look good the whole series. And now you're pretty much, as Bleacher Report said in that one article that I reacted to, you're pretty much locked into a mid-roster because of the salary issues, right, where you're still, even after the Peyton Watson trade, you're still extremely close to being like a luxury tax second apron type of team. So you have guys that you're paying a whole lump sum of money to, but the problem is these guys aren't super valuable trade tips, right? Like, let's say you really want to go and you say, okay, boom, we can tell this team's getting worse. We heard all the buzz about picking up Peyton Watson, signing DeMar DeRozan, and why everybody, sorry, congestion, why everybody in and around the NBA world hated that and hated those back-to-back roster moves, back-to-back transactions, and everything like that. So, okay, boom, let's try to trade an Aaron Gordon, let's try to trade a Christian Brown, and let's try to get some better players, get some more depth around Jokic. Well, the problem with that is those aren't valuable trade chips. If you really want to get something, you're probably going to have to trade Jamal Murray. Nobody's going to be out here giving you a ton for Christian Brown, who is the reason that you're in this situation that you're in right now with his contract, or an Aaron Gordon, who's an older and aging and injured defender. I just don't really understand why any team would really be willing to push everything to the table to trade for either one of those guys. And if you're the Nuggets, I mean, you're not really going to rush to trade Jamal Murray because that's the only thing that you have that you can sell Jokic on for staying. Because Jokic, I believe, if I'm not wrong, correct me if I'm mistaken, is a free agent after next season. Bro, if you're the Nuggets, you can't trade Jamal Murray, who's the only other guy on this team that, like, I mean, the main other piece on this team that Jokic has any experience with. You can't trade him to go get some depth, and then you have a worse season than you should have had, and then Jokic is a free agent. That's terrible. Can't do that. So you're kind of pretty much now locked into this roster, and the way that things are looking in the Western Conference and the way that things are looking with this roster, this is not going to be a very good team unless Nikola Jokic has, like, unanimous MVP level season. And because of that, I think the only thing that the Nuggets will really be able to do to change anything would be fire David Adelman. Like we said, they're kind of locked into this roster, and unless Nikola Jokic is going to leave, or unless they're going to trade Jamal Murray, or unless they're going to try to sell one of the guys that they have right now and hope they can get something back for him, I don't see any way for this team to pivot, to be any better than they are now, or to really kind of convince Jokic that they're even trying to change anything without firing the coach. But my whole thing with that is, like, is David Adelman even a bad coach? Or did you just thrust him into a bad situation? Did you just fire the guy that was ahead of him for no reason and then promote him in the midst of the team getting worse year in and year out? So, again, this one, I don't necessarily know if it's fair for David Adelman, but the reason why I think it's more likely to happen than any of the other ones is because, first of all, just 2 years ago, we saw the Nuggets fire a coach unfairly. And then second of all, because I think the future for this team, or the outlook for this team this season, is probably the bleakest of any team, just because there's not a lot on this roster, man. Number 3, give me Ime Udoka. I hate this one too, dude. I kind of hate all of this. Like, I hate this video right now because I just feel like it's so negative, but, you know, it's my job. I was a big fan of Ime Udoka in Boston. I want to make that very clear. The whole thing that happened with the staffer and everything like that in Boston was crazy. I understood why they fired him and everything like that, but I was very happy when he got that job in Houston. I absolutely thought he could have done phenomenal things with this Houston team. And then the first year he's there in Houston, he takes them from a team that's like an 11, 12 seed to, were they a 2 seed? Or no, maybe I'm tripping. I think he took them from a team that was like the worst team in the league to being like an 11 seed or that was the year they were like battling with the Warriors for the play in, and they trade Jalen Green, then they go out there and they get the 2 seed. Boom, right. Okay, cool. That all happens. But do you remember how the Rockets season ended last year? The Rockets were a team that traded for Kevin Durant, and everybody was expecting this team that was a 2 seed that gave the Warriors a fight. This super young team, they trade Kevin Durant without losing any pieces that you are super, super in love with, and you go, oh yeah, boom, championship, it's championship or bust. This is one of those teams where the Fred VanVleet injury happened, and that put a damper in things, but with Fred VanVleet healthy, we were all talking about this team being a legit contender. Well, they went into the playoffs last year missing only Kevin Durant and lost in 5 games to a team that had literally only LeBron James. There was barely any Austin Reeves, and I don't think Luka played at all, if I'm not mistaken. But there was barely anybody there to help LeBron James. And it was not like LeBron James had this super deep, super healthy, super amazing team behind him like he does now with the 76ers or like he did with the Heat or the Cavs. So he does not have this phenomenal team with him. It was him, Rui Hachimura, Marcus Smart, and DeAndre Ayton out there praying. And you still lost to him. That is really, really, really a bad look, especially after last season. You already kind of, I won't say disappointed. Well, no, you definitely disappointed in the playoffs. But the way that I felt like your players didn't progress to the level we expected them to, right? Like I feel like a lot of people came into last season expecting maybe Tari Eason, Jabari Smith Jr., Amin Thompson, even Alperen Sengun, Reed Shepherd, somebody to have taken a step. And I don't really think any of their guys really took a major step last year, and I think that's a problem. The fact that you lost in the playoffs the way you did lose in the problem. So now we're talking about this year, and you have a Fred VanVleet back. You have another year of all these young guys, and you still have Kevin Durant. You can't lose. You can't. And by saying you can't lose bad. You got to run into an OKC. You're gonna have to run into a Minnesota. You're gonna have to run into a San Antonio at some point. I feel you, but you can't be a first round exit. You can't get swept in the second round. You can't lose in 5 in the second round because the Houston Rockets didn't go from being a 2 seed to trading for Kevin Durant for no reason. They didn't go from being a young, healthy, inspiring, youthful, hopeful team to a team that has Kevin Durant on it, one of the greatest players of all time, just for fun. No. You're too good for that, Kevin Durant. This is not 90-year-old Kevin. This is not 2013 or a post-Achilles tear Kobe Bryant. This isn't that. You are still very, very good. Probably good enough to be the best player on a team that's competing for a championship still, Kevin Durant. They didn't trade for you to be a first-round exit or for you to lose in 5 or 4 games in the second round, even if it's to an OKC, a San Antonio, or even a Minnesota. It doesn't matter. You can't do that. And if they did do that, obviously, I don't think they would be trading Kevin Durant that they would do. Even I don't want to say obviously. I think they could because it depends on his contract. So, sure, they could trade Kevin Durant. They could try to get somebody else that will try to come in here and fit with this young core a little bit more. For sure, that could happen. But also, even if they do that or even if they don't do that, I could just see Ime Udoka being fired. I mean, terrible first round last year. Players haven't progressed to the way you expected them to, and then you would disappoint in the playoffs for the second year in a row. But this year with a healthy Kevin Durant, yeah, I mean, it would probably kind of be tough. You know what I mean? Especially with the offense just not being great. Like, even if you have a great defense, there are going to be guys who are going to be like, yeah, but we need a coach who can really unlock this offense. You know what I mean? Assuming they don't really unlock this offense this year, I could very well see Ime kind of being out. You know what I mean? Like I said, the Rockets traded for Kevin Durant to beat OKC, to beat San Antonio, to be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the world. You fall short of that. You fall short of that again by a lot. It'll be tough to see the guy at the top not leave. Not gonna lie to you. Nick Nurse. I hate this one too. Big Nick Nurse fan over here. Y'all know I'm a Raptors fan. He won a championship with my team in 2019, so I will always have love and always be a fan of Nick Nurse. And I want to start this one off by kind of saying I don't think he's on the hot seat today. I don't think that he's going to be on the hot seat in the beginning of this. In the beginning of the season, I don't even think he'll really be on the hot seat throughout the season unless the Sixers are like a play-in team. I think the Sixers will be a good team. And even if they're like not the top 3 seed that they could be, assuming it's because of injuries, I don't think people will blame Nick Nurse because of that. However, should this team not perform to the way we expect them to in the playoffs, should this team not be meshing, should guys be confused about their roles, or should things not be looking great on the court, or should things just be a little clunky, should it be difficult for Nick Nurse to find these things out, I do not think the Philadelphia 76ers would hesitate to move on from him as the head coach. for a couple reasons. One, obviously Nick Nurse is not a bad coach. I think if he got fired, he would find a job the next day. But the other thing is Nick Nurse has been there for some years, right? And while they haven't done anything in the playoffs since Nick Nurse has been there, I don't think that's really him. He also really hasn't had a healthy Joel Embiid in the playoffs either. So, like, it's kind of tough for them to do anything crazy in the playoffs, like make it to the conference finals when your MVP center and one of the best players in the world when healthy is not there all the time, and even when he is there is injured. But this year, that's not going to matter. I'm sorry. Unless your whole starting five is hurt, it's just not going to matter what injuries happen. You can't lose in the first or second round. You can't. You can't add LeBron James and Jaylen Brown to a team that already came back from down 3-1 in the Celtics last year and went to the second round and lose in the first or second round again. You can't. And if they do, I think Nick Nurse will be gone. If they lose in the conference finals in embarrassing fashion, or in the finals in embarrassing fashion, I think it will be possible that Nick Nurse could be gone. Again, whether that's fairly or unfairly, but I mean, we're looking at the 76ers, and even more than the Cavs, they went all in. Because the thing with the Cavs is they only have one guy where it's like, yeah, if this year or two doesn't work, we lose him. Or we know he's going to retire, he's going to regress phenomenally. We know that. With the Sixers, bro, they were already questioning Joel Embiid's health. They were already thinking about pivoting and moving towards a Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe center team instead of an Embiid center team. But then now, you add LeBron James to it, who is already probably going to retire within a year or two anyway. The urgency, the sense of urgency in the Philadelphia 76ers building needs to be on an 11. And if it is, that means there's nobody there safe. If the sense of urgency is at an 11 and they fail, whoever the reason is for that failure will probably be gone. And I could see not Nick Nurse being the reason, but I could see people blaming Nick Nurse for being the reason. And also, I don't just want to sit here and pretend like LeBron James has never done this before. Do y'all remember everything that was coming out after the 2011 finals when they were talking about how I think D-Wade talks about this on podcasts, where they were talking about how LeBron James wanted Eric Spoelstra to be gone and they had to go in there and fight for him and blah, 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 blah. And Pat Riley just said he wasn't going to fire him and blah, 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 blah. But LeBron wanted him gone because LeBron didn't think he could unlock them after they lost in the 2011 finals. LeBron was hating it. He was blaming the coach, blah, 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 blah. And I don't think this will be the same scenario because, one, I think they have a better team. Two, LeBron's an older player and I think he'll have a little bit more patience. And then three, in the last couple of years, we've really not seen teams that put it together in the first year win in the first year. We didn't see the Celtics. The Celtics did win the first year they had Giroux. Maybe I'm tripping. Anyways, but my whole point with that is I think Nick Nurse has the most to gain from everything that's happened, but also the most to lose. I think he has the highest pendulum, right? Where he could win Coach of the Year, but he could also be gone, like, immediately after, like, the day after the season starts. I mean, the day after the season ends. In order for them to go find a coach that they could get them the championship that they so desperately want over there in Philly. I don't think this happens, but it does seem like a realistic possibility just because it is tough to win a championship. And if you don't, with that type of team, the only guy that's going to get the blame unless somebody has, like, a 5-point game or a 5-point series that they're averaging is going to be Nick Nurse. And last but not least, this is a guy that I was going to put as an honorable mention, but why not make it a solid 5 instead of 4? Tyronn Lue of the LA Clippers, man. I don't really know if he's in the hot seat or not because this was a tough one to gauge for me because I don't really think he's done anything wrong, right? The Kawhi and PG era in LA was a disappointment, but I don't think that was really because of him. I think that was more because of injuries and the bubble happened, and there was a lot of things that happened during that time that were kind of outside of Ty Lue's control. But Ty Lue was the same coach that had this team being like 6 and whatever they were at the beginning of last season last year until they turned it around. Now, you could also say he's the same coach that was there when they turned it around. For sure, that's true too. But I just don't want to sit there and act like Ty Lue's been perfect or like his tenure in LA has been perfect, right? They haven't done anything in the playoffs since he's been there in spite of them being a super team when they got there. They haven't done anything to really like make you believe that they ever really had a real chance outside of that first year. And I just feel like Ty Lue's been a guy that hasn't been talked about a lot as like a head coach or as a guy that has a lot riding on him and the success of his team. But I feel like ever since he took that job, there was a lot of pressure on that team and on him. And while the team and him didn't really do anything to, alleviate that pressure, now you're at a point where the Clippers after this season could very well be headed towards rebuild, or after next season could very well be headed towards rebuild. And then you could find yourself in a situation where it's like, okay, either the organization doesn't want Ty Lue to be their rebuild type of coach, or Ty Lue doesn't want to be there to be a rebuild type of coach. And I can see either one of those. I kind of think Ty Lue wouldn't really want to be there for a rebuild. He just doesn't really seem like the type of coach to me that would want to be there for, I don't know, 50 young guys to come in and all be making 50 mistakes a night and him to have to deal with all of that after, you know, trying to be a coach that was trying to compete for his entire life since he's been a head coach in the NBA. So I don't think he would really go for that. But, I mean, I could very well see either him quitting or the Clippers firing him either for that reason or for another reason, right? Because this team also, while they have a ceiling that I don't think is like the lowest in the Western Conference, they have a pretty low floor too. A Brandon Ingram injury, a Darius Garland injury, bad performances from these old guys like Brook Lopez, if they bring Bradley Beal back or whoever any of these guys might be, that would also bring a hamper on this season. Guys, like, this is not a great team. Like, this isn't a terrible team. That when you look at the roster on paper, you might say, okay, they got some defense, they got a little bit of scoring, a little bit of playmaking. Maybe it won't be awful. But I mean, Rui Hachimura is a solid NBA player, but that's all. Brandon Ingram had a good year last year, but I think we know what the ceiling of Brandon Ingram is. Darius Garland is a guy that has injury concerns, as does Brandon Ingram, really, but has injury concerns. And also, I feel like we probably kind of know what the ceiling of Darius Garland is at this point, too, unless he's going to go out there and play an 82-game season and be an All-NBA point guard, which I doubt is going to happen. I just don't think there's a lot going for this Clippers team right now, and I feel like if I'm Ty Lue and my entire NBA career, I've been trying to win championships or I've been coaching for a contending team or a team that people thought should be contending, I'm not about to go to a team that has no path that I see to contention for the next couple of years at the very least. Why would he stay there? But yeah, man, those are my 5 guys. You got Ty Lue, Nick Nurse, Kenny Atkinson, Ime Udoka, and David Adam. And let me know what y'all thought about that list, bro. Again, I am not calling for any of these guys to be fired. I don't want any of these guys to be fired, but for different reasons, I think any one of them could lose their job by the end or towards the end by this time next year. I think any one of these guys could potentially be out of the job, even though I hate to say it. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching as always. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what y'all thought about this video, man. And please don't forget, God loves you and so do I. All right, peace out.